Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to Jillian today. Jillian's a listener over on the YouTube platform, reached out to me wanting to share some things that she experienced down there in Oklahoma. So welcome to the show, Jillian. How's it going today?
It's going good. Expecting some rain, which is always welcome, but it's going to be a great day here in Oklahoma.
Oh, I love to hear that. I mean, we're trying to get back into the warm temperatures up here in Iowa and get back out in the woods. But, you know, Jillian, I know you've got some cool things to share, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure you have the time that you need. Feel free to, take the mic and take us back to whatever we need to know background-wise regarding what happened to you back then.
Okay, wonderful. Let me start by saying that I am a city girl that always wanted to be a country girl. However, I am born and raised in the city. And so I've never been a hunter, a fisherman. That is not something that's ever been in my past. So a few years ago, about 3 years ago, my father and mother were looking at bringing my brother out of California. It was during that time when the pandemic was happening. Things were just crazy out in California, and it was time to try to bring my brother back home. So it's just my brother and I, and I was married at the time. I have 2 grown sons and was just living my life peacefully in my little community, raising my family. I got a call from my dad out of nowhere saying that he had gone out looking for property to bring my brother back closer to the family. He had actually just experienced a divorce. And so we were trying to bring him closer to family. And my dad said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that we now own a property out in Oklahoma. Like I said, I'm a West Texas girl. I have driven through Oklahoma, I think once, but this is not an area I know. This is not an area that I have ever explored or been raised in. And so several weeks later, I make my way out into Oklahoma to visit the property. And when I say the middle of nowhere, it's like something I've never experienced. In fact, my first trip, my GPS failed. I was, no cell phone service, found myself in so many different scary parts of Texas and Oklahoma. It was a terrifying experience. But when I finally made my way to the property, I found that my dad had purchased a family, it was going to be our family meeting place or gathering place in southern part of Oklahoma. It's actually just 45 miles or 45 minutes from Wichita Falls, Texas. So that's the part of Oklahoma, just right across the Texas border. We're actually very close to the Red River. And so a few months go by, and unfortunately, my life changes dramatically, and I wind up going through a pretty messy divorce. And my sons were both almost grown. I will say I've got a younger son because he comes in to the story a little bit later. My youngest son is has autism, and so I knew, would be staying with me, you know, um, predominantly for the rest of his life. I'm a full-time caregiver for him. So I go through this horrific divorce, which actually is why I wind up leaving my home in West Texas and coming to live with my brother in Oklahoma. Get out here to Oklahoma, and at this time, it's just my brother and I. We live at this time on, it's a wildlife preserve. And because I've always been such an avid animal lover, like I said, I don't hunt, I don't fish, but I ran around this spectacular area, just tromping through the forest and looking at all the fantastic birds and all the different wildlife. And that's when I started kind of learning about traps, because I live on a lake. I'll just say that. It's a gorgeous lake out here. And so I would hike to the lake through the forest that was right in our backyard, and was just looking at all the different tracks that the animals were making, and just started becoming familiar with my surroundings. About 6 months after, purchasing the property, my father wound up passing away unexpectedly. And, that was super traumatizing. We're a very small family. Like I said, just my brother and I. My mother, unfortunately, had been diagnosed with dementia. I mean, it's like it's just a kind of just a whole spectacle of sad things that happened all at once. And that is actually, after my father passed away, my brother wound up moving back to West Texas to care for my mother with dementia, which now left me completely by myself, a city girl, in the middle of nowhere. And so I've always been a little bit of a chicken, not like in my daily life, but like very good type of person. I don't like to be alone. I've always been scared of the dark. I mean, so for me to now live in, as I said, the true middle of nowhere, on a wildlife preservation area, with a huge forest and a massive lake right behind my house. And I was completely alone for the first time. And so I think because of everything that had gone on, that's kind of when I guess I became a little adventurous. Well, I know I became adventurous. I honestly don't even think I had much will to live at that point. And so I would find myself, wandering off into the forest behind my house, just exploring and finding different areas. And, I was never somebody that carried a gun or anything like that. And so I just always had a pocket knife on me, feathers in my hair, running out in the middle of the woods. And so I was off on one of these adventures. It actually was a little bit of backstory. Not only did my father pass away, but simultaneously my ex-father-in-law had passed away simultaneously. I mean, it was a weird thing. They passed very close to each other. And so it was actually the day of his funeral. And so I think because I was in like an emotional state at that time, I ran off into the woods, stayed out there just hiking around, and I found this like gorgeous peak. It's like you went through the forest and then you kind of went up this little ridge, and then you stood on this little peak that you could see the lake. Just, I mean, the most beautiful sight you've ever seen. It also was a great place to actually get cell phone service, because out here there's no cell phone service. And in all honesty, as I said, I'm a city girl. I'm not this, country hunter or fisherman. And so I was out there actually doing a TikTok of all things, and had found this beautiful cove. But at the time, the lake was up really high. I know that now. At the time, I thought that was just kind of the normal levels. But because of that, it had pushed me back in this cove with all these massive trees and the water, just coming up into that cove. And anyway, I thought it would make a spectacular TikTok, and that's what I was doing. And it was around dusk. It was starting to get a little bit later. Let me think. I know it had to have been around late spring, if I remember correctly. And so I'm out there probably a little bit later than I should have been. And as I'm out there making this TikTok, I start seeing like flocks of different types of birds coming into this cove. And so, that immediately, because I'm an animal lover, that immediately draws my attention. So first I'm seeing like these smaller birds and I'm watching them, and then I'm these like seagull looking things coming in, and I'm just focused on all that. And then I start noticing these massive black birds, and I'm not talking about like your average black crow. I don't know what they are. I'm not from this area, but all I can say is they're these massive black birds, and they come out of different areas around the lake through different times of the seasons, different times of the day. Well, this is my first experience in seeing them come to that cove, and they are just like circling over this cove and making a bunch of noise. And so I'm looking up, and then, whether I just was hallucinating or having a moment with these birds, I mean, I literally can tell that these birds are like looking at me. And I start to think, I'm like, those are really big birds. And there's a whole lot of them. And maybe it's, kind of time for me to scoot up out of this area. And I mean, at that moment, I can remember it. The few people I've told the story to, I tell them I don't think I will ever forget this moment in my life. I was standing out, it kind of in the water, but backed up into the trees on a little sandy area. My back was to the forest, and I'd been looking up at all the birds swarming, and just like look up, see that bird, and I know it sounds weird, but I swear I think that bird looked at me, like almost giving me an indicator, like, girl, you need to get us out of here. And so at that time, I mean, I immediately get this overwhelming sense that something is watching from behind. And I mean, so much that, I froze solid and turned around to the forest and just was scanning down low, because at that time I was thinking, like, I don't know what's out here. Like, is there a bobcat? Whatever that is. It was like you could tell that something was watching. But immediately my eyes, whatever it was watching, I could tell it was high up in these trees. It wasn't the birds, but whatever it was staring at me from those trees. And I just got this, like, I don't want to say I was scared, but I just had the overwhelming feeling of something telling me, go home. Like, it is time for you to leave this area. And so I listened to that intuition. I picked up and started back down the trail. At this point, I'm at least probably close to a mile from my house, somewhere in there. And I make it back home. Again, I'm living by myself. And, I don't really think, well, I can't say I don't really think much about it, because I actually did. I thought about it nonstop. But it wasn't a feeling of being scared or that something was, gonna come in my house or anything like that.
Bigfoot Society will be right back after these messages.
So I would say several. I don't really know if it was days or weeks later. I mean, time is kind of hard to judge at that moment. But I did start hearing things rub against the house, um, things like hitting the siding of the house. And it was all towards my bedroom because my bedroom actually faces the forest. It's the I don't have many windows in this house, and so the one window faces directly to the forest. And whatever it was that was hitting or banging or rubbing, it was always like at my bedroom, at the back of the bedroom. And I would remember, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd go outside and start looking and trying to find like, a couple of times I found I had a large, I don't know what kind of bush it was that was right there at the corner of the house. And I found all the limbs were broken off of it. I asked several people about it, like in my family. I was like, I keep hearing something like either hitting or ripping the house or, oh, it's probably the deer. It's probably this. It's probably that. I thought, okay, well, probably a deer. I don't know. And so life just kind of moves on. I continually have experiences like that, though. But as far as hearing like things bang, and it was typically late at night, but it was just a singular. Like it wasn't like somebody knocking, or anything like that. But it was like something slammed against my house. Because by myself, I know this sounds very bizarre, but at that time I didn't have any window coverings on that one window in my bedroom. And I have this gorgeous tree right outside that window. Old, I don't know what kind of tree it is, but I mean, it's massive. And there's also a huge windmill an old windmill that sits out there beside us. And so I, always like to keep that window open because I loved, being able to see all that and watch the birds and things like that. Well, I started noticing kind of as I lived here a little bit longer, again, by myself, I started getting all this very weird feeling that something was watching me from that tree. And, but again, not something that scared me. And I am a huge chicken normally. I don't, I'm scared of the dark and stuff like that. But for some reason, whatever it wasn't making me feel uncomfortable and safe. It's almost like something was watching out for me, or looking over me. And so life progresses. Let me think. That first experience, though, did absolutely change my feelings about going out in the forest, especially in that area late at night. Something I did forget, though. After I had that first experience, my curiosity, took the best of me. And so I continued the way the path goes in the forest. You can go on up around where that little cove area is and go deeper in the forest. And it eventually takes you, about 1.5 miles down the road through the forest. You wind up getting to, I say, a main road. It's not a main road. It's not very well traveled, but it's one of the main roads that if you wanted to get out, some people get out and let their horses on this trail. Some people occasionally will go hiking through here. I mean, it is a wildlife preservation area, so there are a few hiking trails. And so I went off kind of looking to see what would have been back here, and so this kind of brings me to how I found you and this whole Sasquatch community. Is that as I go back there, I photograph my life. I mean, I photograph everything. Not me personally, but the scenery around me. And so I'm out there taking pictures of tracks, and and I start noticing, like, in this area of the forest, there is these are huge, massive, massive trees out here, to me, from West Texas, obviously. But these trees are, there's like a whole pathway that is carved out through these trees, and it goes directly to that cove. And so I start kind of thinking, well, okay, is this water damage? Like, did the lake rise at some point? I start kind of going through this, and these trees they're not, broken down low, like where a bunch of rushing water. I mean, these trees are snapped in half at 6, 7, 8 feet. I mean, huge. They're way above my head, and they're not, you would expect, like, with wind damage. I mean, I was going through all this. Wind damage, it wouldn't be a pathway like this. If it was water, well, I don't know the last time in this area that there has ever been water that would ever be up that high, that it would cause trees to snap like that. So I start doing research online, like, tree snapping in this area and that area. And, I kind of stumble on these Sasquatch communities and things, and I'm going, what? Like, we all grew up with stories of Bigfoot, and so I thought, that's, so at first I started really listening simply for entertainment purposes, like to different podcasts and stuff, and just kind of listening. And as I was listening, I started thinking, oh my Lord, like, number one, I never knew anything about Bigfoot or Sasquatch sightings or stuff in Oklahoma. Like I said, I'm not from this area, so I didn't know anything about that. But I started just kind of listening and thinking, well, that sounds very familiar with with what I'm seeing. Like I said, I had been documenting this, trying to kind of come up with what in the world might have been out there that day. But so I've lived here about 3 years now, and so time has passed. Like I said, I've had a lot of different experiences. Like I said, things hitting the house, the trees and stuff like that. But about a year into living here, I wind up getting back in contact with a friend of mine from high school. He had recently gone through a divorce. He's an avid hunter, fisherman, things like that. I have a little area on the side of my property that I rent out to fishermen and bird watchers and stuff like that. And so I had been promoting that. And so he messaged me, okay, so he comes out here to do that. And because he's known me, we're sitting and we're talking, and I specifically tell him, I'm like, I'm going to be very honest, I think there's a Bigfoot that lives behind my house. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, all right, that's different. And I was like, no, I'm serious. Like, I think there's a Bigfoot, and I think he watches over me. And he's like, okay, well, I said, so when you go out fishing, there's a certain area, and when it starts getting like dusk, like, you start seeing the birds, you need to get on up out of that area. And he was like, okay, and just entertaining me, thinking, she's lost her ever-loving mind. And, fast forward a little bit longer, we've known each other since we were 10 years old. He winds up, we start a relationship. So now he's involved in the story out here as well. Again, not someone that knows about Sasquatch, Bigfoot, nothing, none of that. Just, I constantly am telling him on repeat my bizarre stories and things like that. And, living out here, I've constantly heard the very bizarre noises at night. And I learned through, again, listening to different podcasts, I guess people, if you believe in Sasquatch or Bigfoot, then you call them yips or howls or things like that. And as I would go back and watch videos or listen to videos that I had recorded and stuff, I started telling my fiance now, listen to that. Do you think that is, associated with what we're thinking? And again, he started kind of taking it more serious, and he was like, he's grown up in the country, so he knows what coyotes sound like, and he knows what tracks look like, and he hunts, he fishes, he does all this, he knows bird species and stuff. So when he started kind of becoming like curious, going, that doesn't really make any sense, Jill. Like the way that sounds, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Yeah. So let me think. So we were out. One of the weirdest experiences we did have, though, is that we were out on a hike. We were back at that same peak, and we had both our dogs with us, and I think we'd been fishing. He was teaching me how to fish and stuff like that. So as we start back, the dogs, okay, on this, let me first tell you, on this peak, it is probably less than 20 yards from that cove that I had my first, something, is watching. So in that area, right along that peak, the grass is well over my waistline, and so at different times of the seasons and stuff, and again, he's a hunter, so he started saying, well, something's bedding down over here. And as we continued to look at it, he was like, my gosh, we've got game cameras, and so we do know there's deer and a few, there's wild animals out here, but to have that many deer that bed down, he was saying, like, that has to be a ton of deer that are pushing all this down and bedding down. And it was right at that peak that overlooks the entire lake, that right before you drop off into the forest. So we're out this day, and our dogs are they won't stay out of this one area. They keep kind of running behind that bedded down area. There's a pile of trees that are very tall, and right behind that is a little clearing. And my dog, so we go back there to figure out what is going on. And no, that's not what happened, actually. I'm sorry. What made us go back there was that my dog brought back a deer leg, but it was from the knee down. Again, I'm not a hunter, so this is all from my fiance. A deer knee, I guess. But it's like no usable meat. So out of curiosity, we go back there, and it is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. There is a huge area that is bed down, and right in the middle of that are, at that time, 3 legs, because my dog had taken one of them. But it is from the knee down. Now, we scoured that entire area. There was not a drop of blood. There were no other bones. Like it's not like an animal, and, we even looked at thinking like poachers, and we were thinking all kinds of things, because it made, my fiance says, like, he's never seen anything like that. And so, honestly, the only thing that was left behind besides the 4 legs was a little cluster of white deer tail fur or whatever. And in that area, we kept trying to get the dogs away from the legs, because my fiance was like, Jill, like, do you not smell that? And I was like, well, I was so confused. And I was like, yeah, but maybe it's rotted. And he's like, no, this is like completely fresh. It's not the meat that's rotting.
Bigfoot Society will be right back after these messages.
And I was like, well, I mean, heck, I don't know what any of this is or what it means, or, And so we try to get the dogs off. We decided at this time it's getting dark, so we head back to the house. But it's something we just continually thought about. And my other dog ran back once we got home. He ran back about the mile from my house back to that point, and he came back with one of those like deer legs. And over the next 3 days, both my dogs got so sick. And, my fiance and I kept going back and forth with that on, that he even said, he was like, that is not, that meat is not rotted. Like it wasn't, we just couldn't figure out what had made the dogs so sick. So I think that experience right there, again, drove me to the internet and started looking. I was like, what just like picks up a deer out of nowhere? Yeah. Yes. It's a wild, this is a wildlife preserve. You can't just be out here, hunting and fishing and things, you don't just do that. Now, also in that cove area, a few other things that we have found over the last several years is that some sort of like mussels or clams wash up. It's a I don't know exactly what they are, but there's a bunch of them. I mean, they come in thousands of them. And in the last 3 years, I've only found one. That has had like a live creature still in it. And the rest of them were all like ripped open. And we've gone back and forth on like the raccoons, because there are some raccoon trails or little tracks and stuff out there. But I mean, very few in considering how many clams there are or mussels or whatever they are that are snapped open. And majority of them are in this little cove area where, again, I had that experience. And so kind of fast forward a little bit. Let me look. I think something that kind of, to be very honest, what actually caused me to wind up reaching out to you is because at this point, my fiance and I are kind of we're kind of paying attention now of our surroundings, and we're kind of looking for different things that are out of whack and trying to make sense of them. Again, I've never been somebody that just like believed. I mean, I'm not somebody that's opposed to believing that Sasquatches exist, or but I was never a diehard believer. I never moved out here to have an experience with something like that, and so I've always been looking for other answers. Like, what else could this be? I mean, there's got to be a reason these types of things are happening. So one of our most recent, this is what caused me to reach out to you. And so we had gone through a snow. This is just a few weeks ago. Okay, we went through a big cold spell. We had snow, so we were in the house for days on end. One thing, on the first pretty day where we could get out and go hiking, we just wanted to get out of the house finally and go hiking. So we're going through our trail that we normally take over the peaks and stuff like that. And again, we are noticing there are so many snap trees, but they are making, they're all on trails that come from the forest directly to the lakeside. And if you lived in the forest and you just made a trail that you hiked every day to get to the lake, that's what it's like. But it's massive trees again that are snapped off over 7 feet, tall, but in a pathway. So we kind of start, just paying attention because we're seeing some disturbances in the ground close to these kind of areas and these trails, and they look like, we come across a couple of different things that actually look like prints, not on the trail that we had walked, but like something that had come out of the forest, come across the trail, like, taking a shortcut and passing the trail, going towards the lake. So we start looking, and my fiance's like, hey, come look at this. And I mean, it is like tracks. I put my foot next to it. I mean, it looks like a human foot almost, but whatever it is massive because it's so deep, so large. So I start photographing those, and we're talking about it. I've got my dog, with me. We never go out in the forest without our dog, and they're off leash. And the most bizarre thing, okay, we're a mile into the forest and probably a mile and a half from that road, okay, where anybody could come in or out unless you lived on the reserve. And so out of nowhere, my dog, while we're taking pictures and we're talking, and out of nowhere, this man appears like on the trail. And when I say a man, I mean, unfortunately, it wasn't a Sasquatch. I mean, this man looked like he had come off the country club golf course. He has the best way my fiance, I mean, he looked, quote unquote, official, is all I'm going to say. Like he had just stepped off the country club golf course. He is a mile into the forest, and it's a pretty warm day. And whether it was or wasn't, he didn't seem scared of my dogs, which I thought was bizarre, because they stopped him, before he got to us and stuff. And he was kind of like, oh, it's fine. But we noticed, like, he doesn't have a bottle of water with him. He's got no supplies with him. It's like this random man just appeared. I told my fiance, I said, hey, I said, was that not weird to you? And he was like, oh, that was very weird. I was like, okay, it's not just me. And he was like, oh, it's not just you. And I was like, okay, why would somebody be out here hiking like this and not even a bottle of water with them? He was like, I don't know, but he didn't look like he belonged out here. And, you normally, as much as I hike around out here, this is not somebody I've ever seen before nor since. So I said, well, I want to get up around, go ahead and go all the way through the trail. And I want to see, because, there's only one way in and one way out. It makes this huge circle around the area that I live in. And right off that main road, there is a parking area that, like I said, for people that either like to hike, or a lot of times people will park and bring their horses down through or whatever. And so I thought, well, if he, we can make it back to the parking area before he can, I want to see like what vehicle he's in. So we start hot putting it through there again, watching for, different tracks and stuff, which they were all through that area, that just were very confusing. I photographed so many of them. And we got back to that parking area, and there was not a single car there. So now I say that, and again, I know my story sounds far-fetched and weird, but this area of Oklahoma that I live in, there's a lot of the people that live out here, they are from this area. They are born and raised in this area. I am a transplant. So, they all look at me side-eyed for the first several years anyway, because I'm not, part of their little crew out here. And But there's a bait shop that is up the road from my house. It's one of the only places, you can go for gas or supplies or anything like that. And I remember when we first moved here, in the bait shop, there was a newspaper article that they had framed on the wall there that talked about, I know this sounds weird, but like a secret underground military base that was here. And talked about, different, different encounters and things that had been in this area. I thought it was kind of cool, the fact that it was actually in a newspaper article. It wasn't just somebody on a blog site, complaining about something, but it kind of gave a lot more of the history here. So, have I at night, while I'm sitting there trying to recount my day, thought that maybe they, this is a secret military base and maybe they saw us finding my mind has gone so many different places because I've had so many bizarre experiences. Talking about that tree that is right outside of my window, there are these thorns. I don't know what kind of bush or branch or whatever grows on, but it grows like a curtain almost off these trees. I mean, it grows up from the ground, but it like envelops these trees almost like a curtain. And, I've been doing work on cleaning property and trimming trees and cutting trees and stuff for over 2 years. Something I don't know if I mentioned, but when my father purchased this property had sat vacant for 2 years. It was a foreclosed property that had just been sitting out here, and the bank had finally taken it over. And my father pulled up on the property just like almost as the sign was going up. And so, so I was cleaning off years of overgrown trees and stuff like that. But this one area, I hadn't been able to really clean it up because the thorn thickets or whatever are just everywhere. And so I have to head back to West Texas to take care of my mom and just handle some business back there. So I'm gone from my property at that time for probably a week. No dogs. My dogs aren't here. My fiance isn't here. I'm not here. Nobody's here. The property's just here vacant. And so when I get back, after, like I said, about a week, and that's probably about the longest I've ever been gone, I am checking the property, kind of just making sure things are in order and stuff. And I don't know what draws my eye, but as I'm looking at that area where that tree is outside my window, and I start noticing, I'm thinking, what has happened to all those like thorn thickets? They were almost like pulled apart in the most bizarre way. Almost like you would open curtains in a dramatic way. It's almost what it was like. And it went all the way up, like almost to that, to one of the main branches. It's a huge tree. And so, it's probably 10 foot in the air. And, it was so bizarre and cleaned out, like something had come through the forest, standing by that tree, opened those branches and just stepped through. And so get on the phone, take tons of pictures, so I can go back and look at, to prove to my fiance I'm not crazy. No. He's like, no, I get what you're saying. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So there was that experience. I will say weird thing though, after we had that experience just a few weeks ago with that man appearing on the trail as we're taking photographs of what we consider some sort of weird footprint or track or trail. A couple of days after that, and I actually went back just to be sure that my memory was correct, okay, at that time, okay, that one, I think, it was well after midnight. And it seemed like right outside our window, over in that area by that tree, is, I guess, what people might consider tree knocking or something. But it was so loud. We were asleep. We both shot up out of bed because, it sounded like we were being invaded. Whatever it was hitting so hard against, I guess, a tree. That's the only thing that makes sense that would make that noise.
Bigfoot Society will be right back after these messages.
And then a few days after that, it's right before right before morning, but it's still dark out. And it sounds. I live in like a metal building. I'll just say that much of it, like a barn dominium type thing. And I don't think I've ever heard anything that loud that did not actually cause any major damage. But again, we both shot out of bed. I thought a piece of furniture had like fallen over on my son or something. We jump up, we're looking all around the house. It was so loud, it shook the house. We both go outside, we're looking for anything. We can't find anything that's there. Yes, but that's when, right.
Yips and howls, but.
Right. That's when, but anyway, that's, I'm sorry, I got off track on that, but whatever hit the house at that moment, like I said, it was startling. Because I've recorded so much, and like I said, over the last probably couple of months, as things have just seemed more off, I've started listening. I'm not from this area, so a lot of things I just thought were certain animals and just thought, huh. But over the last especially the last several weeks, a stench, and I know that sounds weird. Now, granted, I've checked my game cameras. I do know there's skunks in this area. It is, so I'm not saying it is, but I am saying it is potent by my house. And the game cameras that I have seen have been out further toward, out, because I have dogs that I keep out all night. So they're typically not, anything running around that's small, my dogs are going to chase off or get. In fact, my son with autism, he's 21, he smelled it even as he kind of stepped. I had the front door open, and he was like, "Mom, you got to shut the front door. I think there's a skunk out there." And I was like, "I know." Well, that same night and nights leading up to that is when my fiance and I had been hearing all these weird yips and howls. And again, we're no experts. I'm just giving my account. I'm not saying this is what it is, but he's a hunter. He knows what coyotes sound like. He knows what animals sound like. And I think what has always thrown me is how loud it gets when we're hearing that. And, I have seen many, many types of dead animals around the property, but I cannot say that I have ever out here seen a coyote or seen evidence of a coyote being killed or, even hit by something on the road or anything. And so this one night, this was just a few nights ago, we had heard again the night before, lots of yips and howls and I mean loud, almost close. And you couldn't tell what direction it was coming from. Like, he kept thinking he was hearing it over here. And I was like, I think I'm hearing it over here. Like, we couldn't really tell exactly where it was coming from. Well, that next day, when he gets home from work, I said, I want to go out there I want to go out there and like see, like, let's see if there's coyotes, like any traces or tracks or anything out there that's going to make sense. I mean, if there's that many coyotes that are around our property, I feel like we should be able to notice. Nothing, absolutely nothing. As we get off further out in this kind of open field behind my property, that is, it's actually owned by the Corps of Army of Engineers. And, we start noticing these huge bedded down areas again, just like I was talking about. There's this one massive tree that's in the middle of the property. Again, it's covered and surrounded by these thorns and these branches, but something big is able to stomp down enough. There was like this, like a pathway. I mean, to me, it's as if, like when you were a kid, if you made a fort, that's what the tree with these thorn thickets hanging off of it looked like. And in the middle, it's all bedded down, and then all the way around it is all bedded down. There's several huge areas in this open field. And again, I've seen deer, but this is so much larger than like just if a family of deer were sitting out there. And in the middle of that, we start finding like little dead animals, dead animals, typically just the head, just the skull. The rest of the animal was gone. In one of the bedded down areas, we found exactly the same thing, just one little patch of what looked like a little deer tail. And then, what was that? Just a few nights ago, we had our dogs out again. And that, I think, was kind of our last experience I'm going to tell you about that it's just bizarre. Out of nowhere in that back area over there by the tree, my dog alert. This is when we're hearing tons of howls, different things like that. Both my dogs actually are dead still to start, and they are looking in the direction over in the forest. Neither one of them moving, and my oldest dog, who's my biggest protector, he wound up taking off. Whatever was running behind my house in that forest, whatever it was, I mean, it sounded big. Rocco was chasing it and wound up having the phone, trying to capture, like, what is he chasing? Is it that skunk I might be smelling? But whatever it was, I mean, he was growling and something was growling and snarling. I will just say that. I'd say it was Rocco. He was tussling with something. He wound up chasing it out into the forest behind the house. We wound up following. Again, we never fully, I can't say we saw anything. I will say we went out there the next day again, trying to find what was out there. I felt like if it was a skunk, the way he was like chasing, number one, it had to be a massive skunk, but number two, it would have sprayed him. Whatever it was, he was tracking and chasing down or whatever. It was fast. It was large, and there's no evidence of it like having like an animal having anything ripped off of it, like if my dog had grabbed it or anything like that. So again, I just wanted to tell my story because, to be very honest, I have found this whole Sasquatch and Bigfoot theory, it's kind of made me a full believer, not from listening to podcasts and not from anything like that, but because I feel like I've had these experiences out here in an area, I know nothing about. And in my research in trying to find, what animals live out here, what could be in this area, and what noises is this, I stumbled on this community. And so, I know I don't have any fantastic stories of necessarily making eye contact or, you know, but whatever it is, there is something out here in this area. And I, I don't have a fearful feeling of what it is. Of course, again, I'm not a hunter. I don't kill animals. I try to be very respectful of the land. I try to, care for the property and try to be as respectful as I can be to anything out here. And so, in my theory, I hope that it knows if I am living in its presence, that it knows that I'm not here to hurt it. I'm not here to do anything except just live my life. But I just wanted to share my story and just kind of let you know the crazy things going on out here in Oklahoma.
Jillian, that is quite the account that you've had so far. You're keeping a journal of what's going on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Yeah. Good. That is my number one advice to anyone listening that is having weird stuff happen. Start keeping a journal and write it all down, because if this goes on for years, you'll probably forget details. So I'm glad you're doing that. I have a few questions for you, definitely, Jillian. And do you mind if I refer to your son in some of those questions as well?
No, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So you said you have a 21-year-old autistic son?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you were living at home, was he also there with you?
Yes. Now, are you talking about here on the property?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, I don't know if this is where you might be going, but I'm glad you said this, and I apologize for interrupting. But
no problem.
Almost every encounter I have had, including the first one, I don't know if this makes any sense, but I was trying to tell my fiance, I've had more experiences, like when he was gone or going through certain things. And maybe that's what makes me kind of feel like whatever this is, I almost have a protective, like that it's protecting me in some weird way. Like I feel like it's looking over me. And also my son. I don't know, but I apologize for interrupting. Go ahead.
That's interesting. So did you say you would have more things go on when he was not there?
Yes. Yes.
That's really, really interesting. I was gonna guess that would be the opposite, but that is, and he's not nonverbal, correct?
I'm sorry. More experiences when my fiance was not here, not my son.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. So what about when your son is there opposed to when he's not there?
He's always here.
Okay. So,
gotcha. No, my fiance, again, is from West Texas. So he's just recently moved to Oklahoma. So when he would go back and work in West Texas, my son and I were still here for well over a year by ourselves. And that's when I would have, a lot of experiences.
Okay. And is your son nonverbal at all?
No, he, now he's 21, but he was nonverbal.
Okay. Oh, he was.
Oh, yes. We went through a lot. Yes. His communication style is still, challenging, but we were able to get a lot of therapy and do a lot of work. But he was nonverbal for a very long time.
Okay, and all of that was done well before you started having these experiences, right?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. That's really interesting. I don't know have you ever listened to this is a rabbit trail for like half a minute. Hopefully. Have you listened to the telepathy tapes at all? It's a podcast.
No.
It's really interesting. It's a study being done into nonverbal autistic individuals and things that to see if they're able to do certain things. If you're interested in that subject, I would recommend checking it out. But back to what's at hand. So you had mentioned before that there was the window of your bedroom that did not have a covering on it, correct?
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Does that now have a covering on it?
It does, but I keep it open at night.
Bigfoot Society will be right back after these messages. Okay. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
I, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I do keep it. I still keep it open at night. I know this sounds weird, but I feel like whatever is out there, and because I had this weird, all I could say is kind of a weird feeling or relationship with whatever it was out there when I lived completely, by myself and stuff. That I almost felt like if I kept like whatever it was could see me, and this is not a heavily populated area out
Mm-hmm.
here, so I mean it's but I just felt like things went smoothly. I don't know, like I almost feel like when I shut things down and put curtains and stuff like that, that's when I hear a lot more knocks and stuff.
Okay. I was, yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get at, is if you close the curtain, if you noticed more activity. It sounded like that kind of is the case. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yes, sir.
Like
I said, I mean, prior to this, I joked with people, my brother, very few people, because, I was afraid what people would think, but I kind of have a dark sense of humor. And when I would tell my brother or, my fiance about something that I had experienced prior to him being here and stuff, I would even say, like, I mean, I honestly think this like Bigfoot thing out here might possibly have a crush on me. So like, don't be mean to me because.
Right. And
I know it sounds weird, but I was like, I mean.
New listeners might be like, oh, this is kind of a weird group of questions. But if you have listened to a lot of episodes, you will notice that this kind of comes up sometimes where there'll be like the window in the room will not have a covering over it. And I think it's a thing where there's, you hear that there's a curiosity with whatever Bigfoot is, that, and if, a lot of times we're kind of their TV or their entertainment in a way. So it feels like there could be something there.
That does make sense. I mean, like I said, the first experience, like I said, I mean, I'm out there with a phone, dancing to a TikTok in the middle of the forest. I mean, I could see how something could be like, what in the heck is this thing doing here?
That's amazing.
Like I said, this area, I mean, it was probably well over a year before I even saw my first person on the trail out there. So this is not like this area that I live in. It's typically, like right now, a lot of my neighbors are elderly. They've all lived out here forever. They're not out hiking. So it's just a very quiet part of this. I call it the peninsula because in order to get to this property, you have to cross a couple of bridges. And we are kind of right out in the middle of the lake and the forest.
Have you ever talked to some of your older neighbors or any of your neighbors to see if they have experienced anything weird in the area?
Well, I haven't. Now, there's a little local community. There's two things out here. There's a bait shop and a little local dive bar. Okay. And where all the locals go. And they joke with me because, I again, knew nothing about this phenomenon of Sasquatches in the area. And I went on a vacation to a casino here and found some Bigfoot decals and like one holding a fishing pole and, like funny little things. And I put them on the back of my truck. So they all joke with me. They're like, Jill, well, that's old Bigfoot's girlfriend out there. And, so I kind of have a reputation for being the weirdo that believes that. I don't know. These people are very, they don't talk a lot about anything, especially, like I said, I'm a transplant. They all know each other's secrets, but nobody's telling them to me. So I just keep to myself. But, yeah, there's kind of a running joke that, I'm Bigfoot's girlfriend running around out here.
Well, there you go. That might turn into something eventually where people might start talking to you. It might take a few more years, but I've heard of stuff like that happening before.
Right. Very closed off, very closed community.
Absolutely. The dead animals around the property, is there ever anything with its neck broken?
Well, all my chickens had their neck broken.
Okay.
I forgot, but yeah, I raised chickens for a while. All my chickens had their neck broken.
Okay.
Well, neck broken. I don't know, because typically all I find is the head. I rarely, and then occasionally you'll find some of like the little hip bones or things, but typically I just find skulls. Which I have found weird that I've found several in my yard that are like clean to the bone, or like a skull or something clean to the bone that wasn't there literally the day before. Like I would have noticed. I mean, my property is decent size, but I walk it almost every day. And so, I wouldn't typically have an animal out there just, decaying and not know it. So I have found that I've started collecting all the different like skulls and bones and stuff. I mean, people, if I ever pass away and they come and just check my house, they're probably going to be very disturbed by all the things they find.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack with what just was said. So you're actually just finding the chicken skulls, not a chicken with its neck broken.
Now, my personal chickens had their neck broke, but no, I had a coop for a bit. Now, I found, like on my property, I found 2 dead owls. I have found, like I said, just countless little varmints. I think my most recent was like an armadillo, and I was trying to figure out what killed it, because whatever it was, he was still intact, but whatever it was, like snatched him. It could have been one of those big birds, but whatever it was, snatched him behind the neck.
Okay.
He's in my freezer as well.
He's on your freezer. Okay, gotcha. Is anything you find any animals out there? Are they their bodies look like they've been wrung out, or twisted, or just in weird configurations besides a broken neck?
Yeah, gars. The alligator gars, or the gars that are out here in the lake.
Yeah.
Found a few of them twisted up. I think that's about, like I said, most of the time it's literally just like a skull. I mean, it's the weirdest thing. It's like, I don't know. I've been collecting for some reason lots of little skulls of things. I don't even know can't even fully identify what the animal is, but just skulls.
Like when you see a dove, when you kill a dove, you just pop the head off. It's that's what's happening to these small animals. They're getting picked up, and their heads get popped off, and There's no
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm on board with that. Alligator gar is the long fish with the long I don't know. It looks weird, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So
And all the alligator gars that I have found have been in that same cove. It's that same cove that butts right up to the forest. In that one area, I cannot tell you the countless gars. That's where all those clams or mussels or whatever. And I mean, these things that I'm finding, I mean, they're bigger than my hand. And it's like if you were sitting in a restaurant, you cracked open a clam and, pulled it. What is it, a clam or mussel or what, and popped it open. They're all open. Very, yeah. Right. Just very bizarre.
and I just want to check something else about the gar. So are you finding them and they're in the water, or are they up on the land and they're messed up?
Up on the land.
Okay. And can you describe specifically what they look like when you find them on the land?
Well, I've got most of their carcasses here, so like I'm looking at one right, like one of them is twisted. A lot of them are torn. Yeah, they look like they've been torn in half. So most of them are just the head, and like they're good size. It almost looks like something, or yeah. I've never found one that has been fully intact. They've always been somehow separated.
Yeah. And you've never lost a pet, right, on this property?
No, I have not. No. And, I was trying to, before this interview started, I was trying to listen, and I will listen to it when we get off of this again. Whatever my dog chased the other night, whatever that growling and snarling, like I said, it was a very bizarre. And the weird thing is, my dogs run in packs. I have 2 male dogs that are trained to be guard dogs, and it was only the one dog that went after. The other dog literally sat right beside my fiance and I and did not move. And, they go everywhere together. But whatever it was like my younger dog was like, absolutely not. Like, I'm not going after whatever that is. So
that's interesting.
Now, I have had neighbors that have had dogs go missing.
All right.
But I only actually have one true neighbor, I guess you could say. And she had like a little pit mix that she had forever, and then wound up getting a new puppy, and she wound up coming to my house just a couple of weeks after that, looking for her dogs, and I was like, no, she's never found them. So
that to me, if I want to theorize, it sounds like we're not going to mess with the pets of Bigfoot girlfriend, but the other pets in the area are kind of fair game, unfortunately.
To be very honest, I kind of think you're right.
Yeah. Oh, man. So once you had said that property had been vacant for 2 years, and then it was purchased, and then stuff was like cleared, that alone, I was like, oh yeah, this is fitting profile like crazy. Are there any other weird items or objects that are left around your property close to the house besides the dead animals or skulls?
No.
Okay.
Not
Cool,
really.
Cool.
Not that I've seen.
When you are out filming TikToks, have you ever caught any anything weird during those, like any interactions or weird sounds or anything?
Well, I mean, I'm always recording. So anytime at night, if I'm out by the fire, I've got lots of different recordings of just the noises that are going on around me, especially the different hoots or yelps or like sometimes it gets so loud, you would honestly think that like, I think what kind of started making me suspicious about this might not is it sounded like a bunch of apes, baboons, like something you would hear in the I mean, it was like, it was just this, but it was so loud and it was just coming from what felt like multiple directions.
Bigfoot Society will be right back after these messages.
And it struck me as being extremely odd.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that it's not just you on the property anymore, although you are definitely okay to take care of yourself for sure. But there's some weird stuff. Man, the stuff that I'll say this, taking everything into consideration, that's a weird property, Jillian.
Yeah, agreed.
I wouldn't put it past it that it gets weirder as well.
Well, I know this sounds bizarre, but I almost feel like since I reached out and contacted your organization, like, I almost feel maybe it's my own anxiety about it, but I almost feel like things have gotten, especially the yells. And it was after I contacted you that, like I said, woke up in the middle of the night with those huge bangs that sounded like, I mean, it almost sounded like somebody was shooting a shotgun outside of our house. But it was on repeat. It was like, bam, bam. I mean, so loud. And then right before, dawn, having that massive.
I think it would be more like a sledgehammer hitting a tree.
Yeah, I mean, it was something, but it was so loud, echoing right through again that one window, and also over the last 2 days, that is when we have had that horrific odor that.
Right.
So, again, I'm somebody that tries to look at both sides of the coin, and I'm like, it could just be a skunk. Jill, you do live in the middle of nowhere. It could be this. With the experiences kind of put all together is what makes me, that's what kind of started putting the puzzle pieces. And that's why I wanted to reach out, because like I said, this is not something that I do. This has never been an interest of mine. This is not something I'm trying to make something fit. I just wanted to share my experiences and see if people that knew better, and like, things just don't make sense. And I've documented it all. Like I said, I've got so many photos and video and audio and just things that, if it's explained away, perfect. And if it's something more, perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like everything that's out of the ordinary is happening outside the house, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And
all outside that window.
Right, but nothing inside. Yeah. And then, do you feel like there's ever been any type of communication back and forth between you and them besides things that have already been mentioned, like wood knocks or anything like that?
The only thing I can say, and I know, again, this sounds very bizarre, but I've lived here 3 years, and through that experienced the death of my father, death of my ex-father-in-law, a lot of trauma, a lot of this. And so, thankfully, I am in the middle of nowhere where I can go to the end of my property and cry and, have a pity party or whatever I need to do, grieve. And I know it sounds bizarre, but I feel like every time that I'm in like a state of like grieving, like really, that tends to be when I feel like whatever is out there, it moves forward, it moves closer. And that's the only way, like I said, I've never seen anything. I cannot tell you I've ever made eye contact. If I did, I maybe, passed over it and just didn't know. But it is just that feeling when you know something is watching you. And that's all I can say. And it's not something low. It's not a cat. It's not hogs. It's not, it's something that is up in the trees looking down. That's the only way I can explain it. And it's to other people that maybe have never experienced it, I can understand how it'd be like, well, maybe, you need counseling, but probably do. But that is the true feeling that I get, that there is something out there. And it doesn't feel like, whatever it is, it doesn't feel like multiple. It feels like something, like one that likes to hang out around my property.
That's not to say that there's not multiple.
Right.
Because some of these bedding areas are entirely.
Yeah, the bedding areas are very, very large. But I will say.
Those are a mile or so away to be found.
Mm-hmm. So.
That's, man, this is such an interesting story, Jillian. I'm so glad you reached out. And I would say if you can keep in touch with me, because I think it's going to continue. Potentially.
Yes.
I mean, there'll be other stuff that happens for sure. But, I would love to keep up to date with you. As we start to kind of wind down a little bit, are there any other things that you wanted to make sure that you got shared that you haven't been able to share yet?
I really think for the most part, now I will say our game cameras have all been messed with. Now this is something, I don't know if this is going to make any sense, but I'm just going to tell you my experience because I think it's weird. Okay, so as I started having these experiences, I started getting game cameras set up around the property. So one of the game cameras I did set up right beside, because that big tree that's right outside that window, there's many smaller trees around it. So I set it up facing my window, not necessarily to catch a Sasquatch or anything, but I just wanted to know like what was knocking or what was rubbing. So early on in getting the game cameras set up, I would go check them, and there would be, a deer, there would be a squirrel, there would be, just some birds. I mean, just different things that were setting it off. Nothing, crazy. Within the last probably 6 months, I would go in and notice. First, I noticed the game camera was turned upside down, like it was completely like shifted upside down. Okay, well that could have been an animal. No big deal. I would go pull the footage and start reviewing it. Okay. It's going to sound weird, but I can send you the photos because I don't really know what it is. Again, a lot of people joke that out here, or there have been theories that there's an underground base and they're housing a bunch of aliens. I mean, the stories get crazy, but on these game cameras, nothing, no animal, no nothing on this side of the house, but different, all I can say is different beams of light, different I mean, it looks very, very, it's extremely bizarre. And the crazy thing is, they are outside my window. So I don't know what that is. I have yet to, investigate any further. But on the opposite side of my property, where I have game cameras, right, right. So on the opposite side of the property, though, is where you'll catch the animal. But the one right outside of my window, all of a sudden, there's no evidence. The squirrel's gone. There's no deer running around over there anymore. I mean, nothing. Just
that's where the path was created.
Right. That's that same area where that path was created, in the tree line. That's the exact same area. It all seems to be centered around this specific area behind my house.
That's even another, I mean, it's got so many twists and turns.
I know.
Yeah, to know that there's lights involved as well, which totally makes sense, based off of everything else I've heard. Yeah, makes sense, Jillian.
See, I don't know. I mean, I've gone back and forth going, I mean, I was like, do these things like shapeshift? Like what, why is nothing being caught, but yet it looks like it's obvious, and it's in with the way the camera takes the photos. It's just seconds apart, and it's like 1 second, nothing. Second, huge beam of light, nothing. The next second. It's just very, very bizarre, and it's all in these hours, 3 a.m. right before, dawn. So, I can't explain everything going on out here. I just know whatever it is. I just wanted to share my story, and those that know far, far more than me can figure it out from here. But whatever it is, there is something. I just know that. There is something out there.
There definitely is, and it'll be interesting to see what you might experience next. But I want to say thank you to both of you for spending some time with me today and for sharing what you both are experiencing in that area.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed getting to tell our story, and like I said, I was super nervous, but you helped me feel far more comfortable, and I appreciate just hearing us out. And like I said, I don't know that I ever look forward to coming face to face with anything like that, but until then, I'll just be known as Sasquatch's girlfriend out in southern Oklahoma.
There you go. That's awesome. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording real quick. Just want to take a few minutes to say thank you to you, all my listeners, for listening to the podcast. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's a list: the Subtle Lake area of Oregon, Rainbow, Oregon, McKenzie Bridge area, Sweet Home, pretty much that entire area, the north part, if you get what I mean. I'll see you back next time, listeners. Sasquatch Summerfest this year, July 11th through the 12th. It's going to be fantastic. July 11th through 12th in Green Waters Park in Oak Ridge, Oregon. And listeners, if you're going to go, you can get a 2-day ticket for the cost of one if you use the code BFS, like Bigfoot Society, but BFS, and it'll get you some off your cost Priscilla was nice enough to provide that for my listeners. So there you go. I look forward to seeing you there. So make sure you head over to www.sasquatchsummerfest.com and pick up your tickets today.